Welcome to The Solo Grind, where we take an up-close and personal look at what it takes to build your business solo. I am your host, Teresa Shaloop, the original caffeine creative, and I am a brand strategist and web designer by trade. I also love that you are here spending this time with me. If you like what you hear today, or you want to reach out and connect with me screen to screen, please visit my website at caffeinecreative.io and book a free virtual coffee chat with me. Hello and happy Tuesday, my friends, or whatever day you are tuning in. I'm so excited to have you here with me on the Solo Grind, and I am happy to be back. You may not have noticed, and it's really okay if you didn't, but I skipped last week. I had every intention of recording a fabulous episode for you. I even had my notes all ready to go weeks in advance. I had everything ready to go, in fact, but the recording itself. Unfortunately, my body, more specifically my voice, had other ideas. I have been fighting allergies and then a cold for the past couple weeks, and my poor voice was just struggling last week. It was struggling so much that I was no longer able to talk or communicate without coughing. So thankfully, things are much better, and I am no longer having to sip hot toddies to survive the day. So I am definitely on the mend this time, and I am excited for today's episode. Now, in the last episode, we dove into one of the questions that a lot of us as solo entrepreneurs, small business owners ask ourselves. Can I really get paid to do this? And we kind of followed that up with the romantic idea of entrepreneurship, along with the reality of what it looks like to take two different paths when we start exploring that question, can I really get paid to do this? The first path is that path of learning, planning, dreaming longer, and then there's the other path of taking a big leap. Now, as I shared in that episode, both paths can lead to success or disaster. And while everyone has an opinion about which path is the right path for you and which one you should choose, the reality is that you are the only one that can determine the right path for you. If you'd like to listen to that episode, I will be sure to include a link in the show notes below so that you can tune in. This week, we are going to dive into another question that so many of us ask ourselves as we are diving in to this world of entrepreneurship, and that is, do I have what it takes to make this happen? This is one of those questions that brings doubts to the surface, doubts that we hold within ourselves and doubts others share with us as we tell them our dreams. On the flip side of doubts is that well-intentioned encouragement that still really doesn't answer the question. Encouragement like, you can do anything you put your mind to. And where there is a will, there is a way. And one of my favorites, you wouldn't have had the idea if you weren't meant to make it happen. These words of encouragement wrapped in a sparkly, romantic outer shell are sweet, but they still fall short of answering the real question. Do I have what it takes to make this happen? Now, of course, I want to say yes. And I honestly do believe that we can do anything we set our minds to. I also believe that when there is a will, there is a way. But just because you have the know-how and a willingness to make things happen, that doesn't actually mean that you have what it takes to make every idea and every dream happen. There are actually character traits that are ingrained within us that help make our dreams worth pursuing and bringing them into reality. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. But first, I want to share a little personal story to kind of capture better what I mean, that just because there is a know-how and a willingness to make things happen doesn't mean we have what it takes. So, for as long as I can remember, I had this idea of being a life coach. Like, we are going back to middle school, high school here. And I don't even think that was a term back then. And I am aging myself, obviously, here, but that wasn't a term. Life coaching wasn't a thing. But I knew that is essentially what I thought I wanted to be. I had this desire to help people feel seen and heard and discover who they really are within. So when I graduated high school, and I actually been out for a few years, I finally started college and decided I was going to study psychology because that was the only path that I knew at the time that could take me to that desire, that dream of helping people be seen and heard and discover who they really are. Now, I want to say this really quick. I love the world of psychology. I love discovering how beautifully complicated our brains are. I love seeing how our lives, our experiences shape how we think and react to the world around us, and how becoming aware of this within ourselves can really help us shape the life that we are in. So that was my draw to psychology and why I thought it was my path to doing what I needed to do to having my dream come true. Unfortunately, the first college that I found, that program, that psychology program, was very research oriented. Okay. And the head of the department, in fact, who was one of my professors, did not believe that you could help people in the field of psychology. He thought you only could hope to understand them one day. So he didn't really believe in my dream of helping people feel seen and heard and discover who they are within. Okay. At the time, that was the only program in the area where I lived, and moving was not an option. And honestly, online universities were just starting to happen, and most of them were focused on pretty core requirements, not specific degree paths. So I left that university, decided to take another break from college and start looking for another path. So there's that will to find a way, right? I'm looking and looking, and finally I stumble upon a university. It's an online school, and I thought it was exactly what I was looking for. And I signed up, enrolled, and started working on getting my degree in transformational psychology with an emphasis on life coaching, which was finally a thing, and hypnotherapy. This degree involved a lot of intense study, a lot of deep work on myself, and honestly, it was not easy. But I had set my mind to getting this degree, and I was willing to do what it takes. I pushed through challenges. I woke up early so that I could listen to lectures while I made breakfast for my kids before heading off to work. I stayed up late doing my homework so that I didn't have to take incompletes or delay my degree path. And I skipped weekend fun with the family so that I could work on projects and research assignments and whatever else needed to be done. I gave my everything to getting this degree, and I made it happen. I got my degree in psychology, and I became a certified life coach and a certified clinical hypnotherapist. Now, you may be asking yourself right now, why am I sharing all of this? Well, because I want to flip the script on that well intentioned advice we get when we ask the question, do I have what it takes to make it happen? Now, I proved that I could do anything by getting my degree. And I proved that there is a will in there. And by the way, that I kept searching to find the right degree path for me. And yet, I still did not have what it takes to become a successful life coach. There are character traits which have helped me become a successful brand strategist and web designer, and they weren't present in my pursuit to become a life coach. This also debunks that last piece of encouragement that we often hear. You wouldn't have had the idea if you weren't meant to make it happen. Some ideas just don't lead to where we want them to go or where we want to be in our lives, even when they come on strong. Case in point, after everything I did to become a life coach, I still left the life coaching industry 9 years ago, and I have never regretted that decision. And as I shared a moment ago, there are character traits that show up naturally when we are following the path that is meant for us. And I think Liz Tablay, forgive me if I pronounced her name wrong, captures these character traits perfectly in her book, Succeeding as a Solopreneur. And I thought I want to share these with you today because these are the strengths that I honestly can look back and attribute to my own success as a brand strategist and a web designer. And honestly, in anything that I feel I was truly a success at in my life. So, the first character strength that Liz talks about is authenticity. And here's a little excerpt from her book. Authenticity indicates honesty and integrity. For solopreneurs, it means being genuine, sincere, and true to yourself without pretense, taking responsibility for your feelings and actions without making excuses. When I first read those words from her book, I felt like I was reading content for my own website. I actually have a page that speaks to my core values on my website. And on that page, I share how important honesty, even when it isn't easy, is to me because that is at the core of who I am. I also share how important it is to me that I take responsibility or I own what I do. If I make a mistake, I own it. And when I do well, I own that too. That is what being authentic means to me. And while I have identified it or defined it differently over the years as I evolve as a person, it has long since been one of my core values. So, do you have the authenticity it takes to make this happen? To make this dream, this business idea, this goal, whatever it is that you're focused on, do you have the authenticity to make it happen? Let me ask you this to help you understand if you do. When you're thinking about building your own business or following this dream, are you looking to build a business or follow a dream in a way that feels like true to who you are and every fiber of your being? Or are you looking to copy someone else's path to success? There's absolutely nothing wrong with getting inspiration from what others are doing, but copying what they do or walking their path is never going to lead you to your dreams. It's only going to lead you to their dreams. So, when you think about that authenticity, which side are you on? All right. The next character strength that Liz talks about in her book is the love of learning or curiosity. And here's what Liz has to say about that. Love of learning slash curiosity means mastering new skills and seeking out unfamiliar knowledge, both of which can be intimidating outside your comfort zone. Still, having an innate curiosity and a knack for puzzling out solutions to sticky problems are hallmarks of the solopreneur. It's so very true. Our love of learning and that innate curiosity that is within us as entrepreneurs is the very reason we became entrepreneurs in the first place. We are constantly asking, what if, and then exploring the possibilities that we discover. I know myself, I am always learning something new. I love to read about the process of doing something or experimenting with different methods, seeing which ones fit for the best for me, and then perfecting what I have learned by doing it multiple times again and again. In fact, just this past weekend, I hosted a fajita night at my house because recently I have become obsessed with making the perfect homemade flour tortillas. And I wanted to have guests come over and taste test my tortillas to see which flour was the best one to use when making homemade flour tortillas. And I will say this, while food is definitely one of my favorite topics to explore and learn about, this is what I do in business as well. I am always testing new software, new website builders, new design things that are out there because I love seeing how they work. I love seeing if they make my life better or if it's something that my clients can apply. I even work with three different website builders with my own clients because rather than just picking one, I pick the one that is best for them. So, do you have the love of learning or the curiosity that it takes to make this dream happen? I will say this, if you find yourself full of curiosity, always learning about the dream you are pursuing, the answer is probably yes. But this isn't the only character trait needed to make things happen. Like I said, I love learning and I am totally obsessed with flour tortillas right now. But I don't want to open a tortilla stand. That is not my path. That is just something fun to do on the side. Okay, character strength number 3 is empathy. And here is what Liz has to say about empathy. Empathy, usually thought of as a soft skill, is crucial for solopreneur success. Empathy means the ability to see things from different perspectives, a people first approach. By putting yourself in your client's shoes, you can understand their viewpoint, feelings, and their problems. It's an invaluable perspective that allows you to anticipate their needs and find compromises or solutions that will work for them. Now, this brings to mind one of the most common conversations that I see happening in entrepreneurial groups, such as Facebook groups or other similar messaging board platforms. And it is that constant complaining about clients not understanding my process or asking stupid questions. I got to tell you right now, these conversations always have me scratching my head and thinking, well, of course they don't understand. That is why they reached out to hire you. When we have empathy, it's a lot easier to see why they don't understand our process and why they are asking the questions that they're asking. It also makes it easier to address those questions that they have. Rather than seeing questions as an annoyance or a lack of trust in our abilities, we see them as an opportunity to educate our clients about our process and why it makes the most sense for them. For example, when I start a new design project, my clients often want to dive straight into designing the website right away. And I totally get that. That's the fun, creative, tangible aspect of a design project, but it's also not the best place for people to begin. My clients don't understand that because they're not web designers. So it's up to me to educate them. I take the time to let them know that my initial focus is going to be on getting to know them and their clients intimately. I want to know all the basic demographics, such as age and gender and stage of life, as well as more specific details like how much do they use technology? Where do they get their news? What do they do for fun? These details may seem super trivial or useless, but it tells me a lot about what they are looking for in a website. And the ultimate goal for me is always not just build a really cool website, but to build a really cool website that feels easy and comfortable for my clients as well as their clients. I don't ever get annoyed when clients say, "Can't we just start with design first?" Even though this has popped up hundreds of times, and I'm not exaggerating there. I remember being that person myself once upon a time, and I remember getting excited about the design. I can see their perspective. I've been in their shoes. I also understand why they want to take this approach, and I'm happy to explain why it's to their benefit to slow down and take the approach I recommend. So, do you have the empathy it takes to make your dreams happen? If you want to attract your dream clients and build lasting relationship, empathy has to be a part of how you naturally operate. You need to be able to see things from their perspective so you can anticipate their individual needs. If this feels natural to you, then you probably do have what it takes to follow this through. And I want to say too that just because empathy isn't present in one area of your life doesn't mean you can't have it in another area. As a life coach, as weird as this sounds, I struggled with empathy. As a web designer, brand strategist, I'm right there with it. So it can be present in some areas and not in others. All right. Character strength number 4 is stubbornness. And I love this character strength because a lot of times people look at it as a weakness. So here's what Liz had to say about stubbornness in her book. Stubbornness is sometimes described as grit, determination, perseverance, or resilience. But I consider myself just plain stubborn. I refuse to give in, and I often double down when the situation gets dire. I freaking love Liz's description here because while the entrepreneurial world loves to paint a pretty picture and call it determination, perseverance, and resilience, it is this character strength that those who know us best are going to call stubbornness. I cannot remember a time in my life when I wasn't considered stubborn. And honestly, I have always been totally okay with that. When I know what I want and it is truly important to me, I am not willing to compromise or settle for less. This is something that I have been criticized for relentlessly over the years, but I don't care. I will not compromise when it's something that's truly important to me. And guess what? I am living the dream. So again, I'm okay with being stubborn. So let me ask you, do you have the stubbornness it takes to make your dreams happen? If you are following a dream and you're willing to put in the work necessary and unwilling to compromise or settle for less, then my friend, I think you have your answer. Now, character strength number 5 is candor. Here's what Liz had to say about candor. Candor is about frank communication. It's not always easy to be candid with someone, especially clients, but it fosters respect and trusting relationships. It saves time and eliminates ambiguity about our intentions and what you offer. When you focus on the positive to get the point across without being too harsh, it positions you as a leader. I admit, one of the hardest things about being a solopreneur is sometimes we have to share some hard truths with our clients. We don't have the luxury of passing this task off to someone else, and we can't ignore what needs to be said. But if we can step up and say what needs to be said with respect and kindness, you strengthen your position as a leader, you strengthen your business, and you strengthen the success so that it is so much more than you can even imagine. So, do you have the candor that it takes to make this dream, this entrepreneurial dream happen? People always remember when somebody stood by them during a difficult time and was honest. They also remember the times when someone lied to them, tried to hide the truth, or pointed fingers and assigned blame. If you are willing to speak honestly, even when the conversation is uncomfortable, then you likely have the candor that it takes to make this dream happen. I also want to say this that this is candor is one of those skills that I truly believe can be learned. And I think it's one most of us have to learn. It's also one that we all need to practice because learning the right way to deliver uncomfortable news really does matter. Being too direct can make it a bad situation worse, just as much as beating around the bush can make confusion and chaos. Now, let's move on to character strength number 6, which is confidence. Here is what confidence or Liz has to say about confidence. Confidence isn't arrogance. Rather, it is a clear eyed appreciation of your skills and abilities, even when you want to throw in the towel. Confidence is definitely one of those things that all of us struggle with. And in my opinion, I believe that as long as we struggle with our confidence, we will never truly find the success we are searching for. To be successful as a solo small business owner, you have to be confident every time you speak to a prospective new client. You have to be confident when stating what you can do for them and when sharing your pricing. And you have to show up with confidence when the work begins and all throughout the project. It's up to you to assure them that they made the right choice in hiring you, and confidence is the key to doing that. Do you have the confidence it takes to make your dreams happen? Let me ask you this. Can you look your potential clients in the eye and speak clearly about what you can do for them? Are you comfortable fielding questions or finding the answers when those questions aren't immediately clear or the answers aren't immediately clear? And do you clearly state your pricing when it's time to state your pricing? If you can answer yes to these, I would say you have a lot of confidence, my friend. If you can't give a big ol' yes to these, don't worry. This too is a trait that you can develop, and you do that by showing up. Now, let's take a look at character strength number 7, and that is creativity. Here's what Liz has to say about creativity. Creativity does not necessarily refer to artistic skills, although visually or aesthetically pleasing materials of your work products are helpful. Another way to describe this attribute, however, is flexibility or out of the box thinking. Creative flexibility allows you to bend instead of being knocked down and to see setbacks as opportunities. We've all had to get creative a time or two as we build our businesses and follow our dreams. I know that for me, when I have a dream that is just that good, I will think and think and think until I come up with a new solution to a problem that I am facing. I won't give up. That is that stubbornness coming in again, but it's also applying my creative thinking to find a way around whatever is standing in my way. I also know that when I am not willing to put some serious brain power to a problem, it is probably a problem I don't need to solve, and that I'm on a path I don't need to follow. So, do you have the creativity it takes to make this dream happen? Creative thinking is what helps us find solutions when something completely unexpected derails our progress. It is what helps us come up with new, inventive ways of doing something when our resources are limited. And it is exactly what we need to build a business around the life that we want to live. If you are always able to find the way forward, no matter what stands in your way, then you've got the creativity to make it happen, my friends. And that brings us to the last character strength that I want to be sharing with you today, and that is emotional intelligence. Here is what Liz has to say about emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence may be the single most crucial character strength. It refers to the ability to manage relationships and communicate with people professionally and personally with empathy and skill by understanding emotions and social cues. Solopreneurs need to be able to actively listen and read a room for both verbal and nonverbal signals to effectively deliver what is required. Now, I personally couldn't agree with Liz more on this point. This is one of the most crucial strengths that you need to have to be successful as a solo small business owner. And I would say it's important that we structure our businesses in a way that makes this easier to do that. So, one way is one on one communication and more meetings. I know. We live in a world where we want less meetings and we want to automate things and we want to make things efficient. And we're constantly hunting for new creative ways to bring more efficiency into our lives so we have more downtime. But I am here to tell you right now, my friends, by eliminating FaceTime with your clients or even just phone calls, you are often hurting yourself more than you realize. For example, when I am about to reveal the initial draft of a website to a client, I could easily send a link to them via email so that they could take a look at it whenever they're ready. That would be incredibly efficient and it would save me the time of having another appointment on my calendar. I could even take things a step further and do a quick video tour of their website on Loom and send them that video along with a link to the website so that they could look at it at their leisure. But in doing this, by taking that efficient step and cutting out that meeting, I am missing out on some really vital information. Okay. When I send just the link so that they can take a look at their new website, I don't get to see the reaction. I have no way of picking up on the nonverbal cues that may indicate that they don't love what I created. When I spend time with my clients and have an actual live video call, I get to see their reaction when that website is revealed. And while, of course, I really do hope to see their faces light up with love for what I have created, I also want to see their faces if they are disappointed or confused or just overwhelmed by everything going on, which sometimes happens in a really well designed website. At that moment, I am putting all of my emotional intelligence skills to work to determine how they really feel about the design. Some people are going to tell me in words if they don't like something. And I always encourage people to say, if you don't like it, tell me because you're not going to hurt my feelings. But honestly, most people are afraid of hurting my feelings and they want to avoid conflict. So they don't say anything at all, even when they don't like something. I have had clients be willing to accept a website that they don't love because they are afraid of speaking up or because they just don't want to hurt my feelings. And honestly, that is not okay for me. The added benefit that I get when I pick up on their nonverbal and their verbal cues is I now have an opportunity, not a setback, an opportunity to start the conversation myself and figure out what doesn't feel right. I can always make changes to make it feel right. And honestly, usually the changes are not that big, although they may feel big to the clients. I can always make it right, but I can't do it if I don't see their reaction and know that they don't have a website they love. Being able to see how our clients react to specific news and being having that opportunity to address what they are truly feeling versus what they say is one of those traits that is going to help you stand out in your industry. And it's one of those traits that honestly a lot of people don't have. Like I said, there's so much emphasis on efficiency that we don't take the time for these soft skills and emotional intelligence. And this is really what helps you create a long lasting relationship and get more referrals. Now, Liz has one more thing to say about emotional intelligence in her book that I think is really worth addressing. And here's what that is. They need to recognize emotions, and they, being solopreneurs, need to recognize emotions or reactions that might be triggered by something unrelated to a particular interaction. Though emotions may be high and reactions strong, don't take unpleasant responses personally. Sometimes the reactions that we see have little to do with us or the work that we did and everything to do with what's going on in their lives of our clients. If you can simply recognize that something is off and address that with compassion and empathy, you'll realize it isn't you. Saying something as simple as, I feel like something isn't a fit for you. Tell me what's going on, can really open the door to honest communication that is going to strengthen the relationship and improve the final outcome. So, do you have the emotional intelligence it takes to make this happen? Well, are you willing to take the time to read between the lines and tune into that nonverbal and verbal cues? Are you willing to have a few more meetings or make a phone call when things feel off? This is something that does take practice. I have for all of us, it really does. But it's also one of those skills that is going to pay off for years to come. So I say, develop the skill, my friends. You will never regret doing so. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. These, I will say, are the character strengths that naturally appear in whatever it is I'm doing when it's worth pursuing, when it's worth doing, when I have everything it takes to make this happen. What's more important to remember, though, is that when they don't appear naturally in anything that I am pursuing, it's not worth doing. And on that note, I want to leave you with one last thought. Operating your own business is a lot of hard work, especially when you are taking the solo path. But it is totally worth doing, and you have absolutely everything it takes to make it happen when these character traits are naturally showing up on the path that you're on. If any of these trip you up or have you thinking, maybe this isn't what I want, I am sure you have another idea brewing or one on the way. So don't be afraid to step back, pivot, and let yourself explore a new idea that may just be a better fit. That's what I did when I closed my life coaching business 9 years ago. Despite all of the time and money I invested in pursuing that, I pivoted and I have never regretted that decision to leave it all behind me. So, with that, I will say, have a fabulous week, my friends. Thank you all so much for spending this time with me, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Thanks for tuning in to the Solo Grind. If this episode spoke to you, please rate, review, and subscribe, and feel free to share it with a friend. Remember, you can check out my website at caffeinecreative.io. There you will find my blog, every episode of this podcast, and can get access to my free resource library, the Solo Grind Central, where I share workbooks, templates, and courses for free to help you on your solo journey. Have a great week, my friends, and thank you again for tuning in.